On today's podcast.
But sometimes let a man be a man, not provide for you per se because you can't provide for yourself. That's where the misconception comes in. But we do want to feel like you're a protector.
The truth is, adding value will never go out of style.
This podcast is brought to you by iWatch Security. iWatch Security. Get the savings and service that you deserve.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for another Five Things podcast. I'm Brian Smith, your host, and I got a kind of a longtime friend at this point now, Mark Ingram, insurance agent. Thanks for joining us, Mark. I'm excited to get into some good comments here and good conversation. A little bit, tell us about where your office is located.
My office is actually located in North Carolina, in Zebulon, about 15 minutes outside of Raleigh. Been out there now for going on 12 years in July.
It's crazy how time flies, isn't it?
Man, it's 12 years. I can't believe it.
So you've got five good things for us that it's a, on the surface, it might not seem like a great conversation for a lot of people that might be tuning in. But number one, you and I are going to get into some fun stuff that I normally haven't got into before because of our friendship and stuff, things we've talked about. But secondly, insurance, while maybe not as sexy as some topics might be, I'll tell you what, it's having the right insurance / the right agent can really make a dramatic difference in your life. So Mark's going to share some really good information towards the end of this podcast. But tell us a little bit about where you're from first.
I'm originally from North Carolina, graduated UNC Pembroke, and then got my master's degree out at Tarleton in Texas when I was in the Army. And after leaving the Army, came back to North Carolina and opened up my insurance agency here. And so it's kind of in a nutshell. But yeah, I grew up in Charlotte and then in Rockingham.
Okay.
And single family home with my mom and my two brothers, and learned some lessons. Growing up with a single mom teach you a lot about life.
Yeah,
definitely a lot.
What made you want to go into the Army?
Actually, I really wanted to go in the Army because I wanted to pay for college. That was the real deal, because I knew my mom couldn't afford it. And the recruiter, I don't know if they did this back, wherever you guys
probably
are from, but they'll come up, and the recruiters at school, they want everybody to take the ASVAB test and so on and so forth. And the guy comes to their class, and he's writing on the board the numbers for college. And I'm looking at it saying, there is no way my mom's going to be able to pay a dime of this. I mean, none of this. And so I go home. I tell my mom, thinking about it. And my brother had already had a stint in the Marines, my older brother. And so he said it wasn't bad. It kind of teaches the discipline and things like that. So talked to my mom. I was only 17, so I couldn't join. And so I had to get permission. So the recruiter came, and I joined the reserves. And went through the numbers. My mom signed off. I couldn't believe it. So the summer of going to the 11th grade, I went to basic training and came back senior year, fun stuff. And after graduation, then I went to my schooling, what they call AIT. As you know, you're a vet as well. I did that. And then college started. And I was getting a nice check. Everything was working well. And then I went active duty after 2 years of college and stayed for a couple years and went back to a program for green to gold, become an officer. Went back into the military at that point, active duty, stayed for a couple years, got my master's degree, and finally said I'm going to get out. Well, lo and behold, I get out, come back to North Carolina. And at this time, this was not my out yet. I was still in the reserves. And 9/11 happened. And a couple friends were getting called up, and I was like, "Wow, man, this is crazy." So one day, a buddy of mine and I, we had put our packets in to get out well before 9/11, but we never heard anything. Well, I'm at the coffee shop down in Fayetteville, Village Coffee Shop. I don't know if you know it. I'm sitting there, and I was working for Pfizer, and I'm sitting in my car, looking at my sales for the day, where I'm going, my route, and get a call from my colonel. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" "Having a cup of coffee, sir. What's going on?" He said, "Well, Captain Ingram at the time," he said, "got some news for you. You're deploying." What? What are you talking about? So long story short, wound up going back on active duty at that point. Stayed for until 2010, actually. Kind of bouncing around Middle East, then Germany, then back to Bragg, and eventually said, it's time to go. And so finally completely got out and then started this.
It's interesting is as long as we've known each other, I didn't know how many parallels we had
Okay.
Single mom, basically growing up.
Yep.
She had to sign off on
Oh,
mine
really?
because I was a little different experience. I was a little bit of a maniac, I guess, growing up. Like I knew I was going in the military.
Oh, you
And
already
so, what's funny is my mom didn't really want me to go, but she also she said, if I tell you no, you're just going to wait till you're 18 and go. So I'll sign off on
Right.
it. Because she knew once I decided, like, this is what I'm going to do. And I think she was proud of me for that decision. But 13 days after graduating high school, I was, on my way to Fort Dix, New Jersey.
There you go.
I couldn't wait. And it was, part of it, and I hate to sound like one of the boomers, but like, I just think a lot of people our age, because I'm 48.
I'm 48 as well.
48. It's like, I couldn't wait to get started in life.
Right.
I wanted to get a car. I wanted to get on my own. I wanted to, I just wanted to make money. I wanted to crush it, So, a lot of people questioned my decision. Some of my closest friends, who, by the way, ended up going in the military within 2 years after that.
Right.
But it was a great opportunity for a young kid without a lot of opportunity to kind of get started.
I agree. I agree with that. I don't think either of us would be where we are in life if we hadn't started there.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great way to get some discipline and go into it. And without talking bad about it, I was a little disappointed when I got to permanent party, because I was in the 82nd, and it's like, I bought into like the military and polishing your boots and having a fresh haircut and shaved, and my uniform was pressed.
Oh,
and like,
yes.
It was, and I think we're both kind of like image, we like to look good. We want to look the part. And I think that's helped us in life. But when I got to permanent party, I noticed how many people, it's like, oh, this is what government employees are.
Correct.
And there was a lot of that. Surprisingly for me, there was more of that in the 82nd that I would have anticipated.
Okay.
So for me, I never planned on doing a career in the military, but had I stayed, I would have had to have gone to like Rangers or
something.
I want the military, and a lot of that had to do with, of course, the unit I went to. The guy that was there, he's an E8, just riding it out. I mean, he was completely worthless.
Saying I'm going to retire, that kind of attitude. Yeah,
Just
have a year. That
short
kind of deal,
timers.
short-timer.
I mean, he just didn't give a rip about anything, and that was disappointing. Because I had a certain mindset about this, the military.
Oh man,
I can only imagine what it is now.
Oh, I can imagine. My first permanent party was first Cav in Fort Hood, which is going to be, I think, Fort Rodriguez now, or I think it's going to be. Excuse me. But going there, rapid deployment unit, just like 82nd, I didn't have that. I didn't see that until I came back to Hood as an officer, and I was kind of like, wait a minute, what's? Because I was eating it. I mean, I was absorbing it. I was like, this is what the military, this is rapid deployment, because we were always deployed, always in the field, always doing something. And so I was like, these guys are working. I mean, yeah, you would sit down and you kind of shoot the shit a little bit, and you could see some guys weren't as on point as others. That's kind of with anything.
Sure. Yeah.
But years later, when I went back, that's when I was kind of, what's going on here? It was, you see some folks join a government position just so they can get a paycheck. They have no enthusiasm of, let's defend this nation. And that pisses you off because you're there for the right reason. I'm here for what it's going to do for me. I'm here to serve. Right. It's going to give me the discipline. It's going to give me the know-how in life. But what I'm going to give back is I'm going to serve my country regardless. And you see some folks just like, oh, whatever, man. That is the part that pisses you off because maybe I just bit into the whole
apple of the
the whole flag and the whole 9 yards. But
yeah.
I feel that's our responsibility. You join to defend our country
and defend principles,
freedom, the morals,
and
correct,
all that stuff. Yeah,
and a lot of folks are just you walk by somewhere, you're like, I know I'm on a military base. Why am I smelling weed? Yeah. That kind of thing. Or some kid mad he can't wear his earring off post or this kind of stuff. It's like, it's really
right.
It's like, that's really what you're worried about. Who cares? What if they say you can't? Just say, oh, I can't.
Yeah.
You're in the military. You're government property. Do what they told you.
Right.
Where did you join the military to think you had an opinion?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's that part.
It's interesting. Like I embraced it at that point in my life, but I would never want to be under someone's thumb like that again. And I'm sure you're the same way.
There's no way.
But it was a great chapter in life, and definitely learned a lot from it. At that point, you basically get out of the military and you go into the insurance field.
Go into the insurance field, and that was, you want to talk about something we mentioned before we started this. You were talking about Burger King. Nothing against Burger King at all, but eating fast food in general, and it's cost effective to someone starting. Oh, it's cost effective. There's a little joint around the corner from my office, my first office. Oh man, burgers, fries, onion rings, sodas. It was detrimental to my to everything, to my performance, to my health. I mean, no health scares or anything like that, but just sluggish feeling. But starting a business, you're broke. You put everything in, and you're broke.
And a little bit to kind of get the podcast up to speed, we were talking about how Mark's been on a really good workout kick for a while, changing his diet and cut back on the drinking and things like that. Not that either one of us are lushes, but we're big guys. We can put some booze away, and we're very social, and we've been single for a long time. So I think, and we're in business. So I think you're out there, you have a cocktail, you have a glass of wine or whatever. But you've been cutting back and you had a couple drinks. And you're feeling it a little bit.
You feel it.
Not like hungover or anything like that, but you're feeling a little bit different.
Correct. So I'm not at my peak performance where I would want to be. That feeling. You wake up like, is this really...
Just a little bit off, maybe.
Just a little bit off. Is this really where I want to be? And so I'm thinking now, okay, you cut back even more. Cut back even more. I mean, I'll be drinking water next time we have a social. You'd be like, Mark, you can have anything? Just a glass of water, Brian. I'm just kidding.
But we were talking about when I first got in sales in Fayetteville, North Carolina, being so broke. Thank God gas was 99 cents a gallon back then. But I had my Camaro with T-tops. And thank goodness I had T-tops because the air conditioner didn't work. So I would take the T-tops off. Really sucked when it rained. But, I'm in my hot, muggy car with
your suit on.
But we were talking about how I would eat a Burger King Whopper meal. Which again, nothing against Burger King, but it's not. We all can say it's not the optimum meal.
There you go.
But it's funny how I used to eat that regularly, and I would take $3, like three $1 bills, and or maybe 4 quarters in there, and the change it was $2.99. This is early or late '90s.
Okay.
And I would literally take the pennies out of the ashtray, and I would go in for $3.16 or $3.17, whatever it was on the nose, and I'd get my Whopper because that's what I had money for.
That's right.
But what happens is you get out of that, and we were just talking how I hadn't had a Burger King, specifically Burger King, in probably 20 plus years.
Just some type of fast
and
food.
the last time I tried it, it made my stomach so upset, and I felt like I just dumped like a bucket of lard into my body or something. It was just really horrific.
It hurts. It does hurt when you do that. Everybody gets on me now, and like the office the other day, took the folks out to lunch, and they were getting some fried food. Somebody got onion rings. Somebody got a Philly steak. What are you gonna get? I was like, I'm just get a salad with some grilled chicken. What? But I know why.
Sure.
If nothing's wrong with eating a Philly. I mean, I love Philly cheesesteak. They're great. But it just makes you sluggish. It makes you tired. And I just don't feel like you're performing as well as you can. It goes in with, we're talking about drinks. I mean, social drinks are great, but your performance is not there. And so people say they want to cut back on what they're eating or want to eat healthier or want to eat cleaner. It's everything. And once you feel great from doing it, once you feel great from not eating that Whopper every day, it's very hard to go back to eat the Whopper to do that to yourself.
Right.
Nothing. We're not talking about pounds or weight or anything. We're talking about how you feel. If you and I right now sat down and ate some kind of a fast food super max meal with fries and a milkshake, and
we're going to feel it.
We're going to feel it.
Yeah.
We're going to feel sluggish. You're going to feel like, oh, I'm so thirsty. I need so much water. That feeling is not where you need to. I don't think you need to, as a business owner, that's not how you need to feel.
Right.
You need to be on point as much as you can. Obviously, you're going to get sick, have bad days and things like that, but you need to be on point. And how are you going to be on point if you're putting bad stuff in yourself, in your body all the time? I just don't think it works.
Right. And so we're both 48. I think we're learning, or we've learned over the last decade or so, that we have to improve in these areas, because we want the best out of life. And I'm speaking for myself here, but I would imagine you can relate. It's like there's something that happens, I believe, when you get into your 40s. It's like you can kind of like, when I was growing up, if you were 48, you're fucking old.
You're old, right?
Whereas I'm grateful that I don't really, like, there's some awesome, vibrant 50, 60-year-olds now.
Absolutely.
And so I believe that I'm grateful we grew up in a generation where smoking isn't as common as it was back then. Like, we know about vitamins, we know about skincare and health practices and all that kind of stuff. We know the food pyramid was the government was manipulated to create that.
Right.
And it's really not a good thing for the most part when you dig into the details. So, but I just think as you get into your 40s, I think you realize mortality a little bit more.
You do.
I would say this. Here's the other thing. You deal with death more in your 40s.
You do.
Whether it's you losing loved ones, whether it's a friend
Friends.
friend had a heart attack sitting over his computer last night, and it's like, what? And so I think you're faced with your mortality a little bit more, and it's kind of in your face more regularly. I lost my mom in my 40s, and I just think it's one of those things that, okay, you just become more disciplined in other areas.
You do.
And it draws more attention.
Good reason. I think everyone says, my 20s are my best years, or my 30s, or my 40s, or my 50s. If you're in that age group, that's your best year. But I honestly feel that my 40s have been my best years.
Same.
And it goes back to, I think we've learned so much about life in general. Just people. You learn so much about people. Your business is more successful now than it was 5 years ago, right?
Same.
And it's because of what you've learned along the way, and it's easier, I think, now in your 40s to implement the practices will do well than it was, say, in your 30s. You were still a little not out there in your 30s, but the discipline hadn't hit so hard. Now it's almost like you and I we both talked about our most successful years in business. We'd had that. We talked about, wow, I think we had the same year. We were the most successful we'd ever been. Well, why was that? And we have our own reasons, and we look back, but I think the underlying is discipline. You stay true to what you wanted to do. No matter what it took to do it, you did it. And I think that was the same for me. And I'm big on, I beat you to death on the fitness piece, but I really feel that when I really got serious about my fitness in my 40s, everything changed. I actually found a great girlfriend, as you know, and my business is more successful. I have a great relationship with my kids. Everything seems to kind of fall in place when you put discipline in your life on things you should do and shouldn't do. It's huge.
Yeah, it's 100% true. The other thing, if you're younger listening to this podcast, I think it's important to know that patience is really important.
It is.
Everybody wants everything right away. I still do.
Right.
But I think we understand that a saying that we were talking about Tony Robbins before the podcast, Anthony Robbins, whatever. And, he says most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5.
Exactly.
That's so true.
It is.
And it's you can set high goals and you can go after it. But I think for me, part of it was I was a natural spender. So I had to really curtail that.
Yes.
I'll go through a personal thing.
Sure.
Living in the barracks in the Army, this was probably, 93, 94, went down to Circuit City. If you remember that place.
I remember exactly where it was there. Yes.
Man, I got qualified for a credit card, and I got the biggest, baddest stereo system. I had these big Sherwin Vegas, Harman Kardon, Harman Kardon. Like
I know exactly what you're talking
and
about.
I maxed out that credit card, and I probably spent $5,000 on that thing with interest and everything over time. And it's because I think it was like $1,400 or something at the time for all that being stuff.
$5,000, right?
Yeah, for a speaker that I could have blown up a 4,000 square foot house easily. I'm in a barracks at a
what are you going to do with all that?
Room about this size, honestly, and it's it was just stupid. And you don't know what you don't know. I could have been buying Apple stock,
correct,
and I'd be wealthy off that $1,400-$1,500. I would literally be wealthy, off that $1,400-$1,500. And so, I bought a computer in '94. It was it was a 3,000 again on a credit card.
Right.
It was it was Best Buy credit card or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but
Circuit City probably.
it could have been Circuit City. Maybe I was running that thing up again. But I remember it was a $3,000 computer. And back then a PC was very expensive.
Yes.
But I felt like the deal. I mean, I was young. I had my own house already.
Right.
I just bought a Saturn with a sunroof, 4 doors.
Yeah.
It's a nice little ride, new car. And, Dad at the time, but I bought this computer. It was at HP. Had I put that $3,000 into HP stock, I'd be wealthy.
Absolutely.
So what it really comes back to, I think, as we get older, we realize what I do today impacts me over 20 years. What is this decision today going to mean to me 10 years from now?
Right.
And, but we're also, I think we have experience to where we curtail the spending, but I'm also going to enjoy the journey.
Correct.
Because nothing's guaranteed tomorrow. So I think you kind of find that sweet spot because it's not what you make. It's what you save and invest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Realistically, I know people that make $500,000 a year and they're broke.
Absolutely, I do too. It's a joke.
And so it's one of those things that it doesn't matter what you make. Longtime friend said that a long time ago. He's not what you make; it's what you save and invest. Yeah. And he was right. And so, I'm never going to be the guy living in an apartment driving a Corvette again.
Right.
That was really stupid.
Right. It was. What am I doing?
Right.
So what am I doing?
Now we had some fun. It didn't kill us.
It didn't kill us, but the fun has to different type of fun.
Right.
And I'll tell you, my 20-year-old told me this. He was having some issue with his girlfriend, and we were having a conversation on the phone. And you're always happy when your son calls you and wants to discuss the stuff with you. It makes you feel good.
Absolutely.
And so we're talking, and I was so proud.
Even better when they listen.
When they listen, yes.
Right.
And he said his girlfriend was at a party, and it was a Sunday. And they're in college, they go to the same school. And I'm like, well, it's Sunday. I was like, you can't always stay in. You can't always be the guy behind the computer doing schoolwork. Great, you have all A's, which is wonderful. I'm very proud of you.
That's awesome, yeah.
But you also need a little bit of a social life.
Sure.
And he was like, Dad, I'm social. I go out and I talk to people and I have friends. He said, but this is what's important for me now. I can party when I graduate and make some real money. All I did was, absolutely right. What did she say to that? Oh, she said, oh, Gavin, the party's tonight. You don't know what's promised for tomorrow or something. To that effect, he was telling me on the phone, and I'm just like, this kid just told me what it's hard for me to hear a 40-year-old tell me that I can invest the time and party later and do the work now. I mean, he's 20 years old.
Right.
Then he's telling me that. I said, I have no complaints. I was like, well, you have a conversation with her, tell her what your goals are, and if they don't align, you might need to have a different conversation.
Yeah.
Basically. And he was like, all right, thanks or whatever. But I couldn't believe it.
That's a great mindset.
At 20, I didn't have that. I thought I was a shit at 20. I thought I knew what was going on.
Right.
But saying that,
and that's delayed gratification. It's a tough thing to learn.
It is.
And I think, personally speaking, when the credit card bills get hard to pay, and you start having it when I got out of the military and I had kids young, and all of a sudden it's like, you're running around like this all the time, working 7 days a week just to still be broke.
Yes.
That's where you kind of learn from trial by error.
You do.
It's like, I'm banging my head against the wall and I'm getting tired of these headaches.
Right.
But
and you weren't bailed out.
No, I never got bailed out.
That's the thing. Same here. Never.
There were times where, in hindsight, I probably should have looked for more help. I should have probably been more open to asking my mom at a couple points in my life.
Right.
But I was, I guess prideful would probably be the word. Like I wanted to, I was probably a combination of stubborn, combination of prideful. Maybe I should have taken unemployment at one point in time, which I never have. But, now it's like I got through it. I figured it out. I was never afraid of work. What it really boiled down to is I just needed an opportunity. And I never wanted handouts. Not really. I just never wanted a handout. I always wanted to earn it. I wanted to make something of it. And this is, we'll kind of talk about, I guess we'll talk about it now, but you can be the right driver in the wrong vehicle.
You can.
And you can be in a Nothing against a, let's say, Kia Sophia. Nothing against Kia, but you can drive, or you can jump in your Maserati and you're going to go faster.
Correct.
And you're going to get there quicker
Right.
and better. So it's same driver, two different vehicles. And, so that's real important to understand that where you are in life, you make the most of what you're driving, but you might need to keep your eye out for a different vehicle too.
Absolutely.
That's all I needed was a vehicle that I could make money, work my ass off and be compensated. Might be getting around different people.
Mm-hmm. That's the whole meeting people, getting out there, even when you're tired, even when there's something going on, you're like, let me go. Let me just go ahead and go. And you never know what winds up happening when you go.
Sure. It's funny, over the last 15 years, I'd say I've really grown to understand it's about getting to know people. You're in insurance, I'm in security, but we're not. We're in the people business. And the more people we develop good, solid relationships with, and, it's a little tricky when you're single, and we'll circle back around on this, but it's that's really what it's all about is just trying to be good to people, trying to add value. That's something I think we've both learned. So that kind of brings me to the thing that one of the things I really appreciate about our friendship, and I think it's good for other people to hear this. You and I have talked about race.
Yes.
We've talked about black and white.
Yep.
Politics.
We've
Talked about politics. We've talked about. I feel like I could have a good conversation with you about anything, and we may end up agreeing to disagree, and that's okay.
Right.
But more often than not, we generally, even if, let's say you voted for this guy and I voted for this guy,
right.
even though we might have done different things, we can still have an intelligent conversation about, principles.
Correct.
And more often than not, I find when somebody will actually engage in a conversation and it's not adversarial and you're not,
Right.
Trying to win the argument, which is something I've been guilty of. And I'm, really, I've really worked on that over the years. I'm not necessarily looking to win the arguments anymore. I'm seeking to understand.
Right. I might not agree with you, but I want to understand where you're coming from.
Sure. Because I know at the end of the day, our heart is generally going to be in the same place.
Right.
Our principles are generally going to be in the same place. We weren't really given anything in life.
That's right.
We've had to pretty much work for almost everything we've had, and we've learned through a lot of trial and error. And so we're very like-minded in a lot of different ways. So that being said, one of the things I wanted to get into that I've never really talked a lot about on, except for one podcast I did, was basically guys don't do this, with three, I had three females on a panel, which was cool. But being a single guy, being a business professional, being a single guy, you're networking, it's a fine balance to walk.
Very much so.
I know we've learned a lot because we both talked about a lot of stuff. So let me ask you this. If you had to throw a piece of advice out there, because I think we both have females that will talk to us.
Correct, we do.
Because they know they're going to get good advice from us. And I can tell you what the guy's thinking.
Oh, absolutely.
I can tell you exactly what's going on. You may not want to hear that.
Yeah.
But I think we're both the guys that, hey, if you really want to know, I'll tell you what I believe is going on. I could be wrong. I'm probably about 95%
Pretty sure we're
right.
Pretty sure, yeah.
So let me ask you this. What advice would you give to, let's keep it general initially, single people out there dating? What is a piece of advice you'd give to someone?
I think stop looking for a dream. I think that's the biggest misconception that we were taught as children, that you're the knight in shining armor and you have to save this lady. Well, it's 2023. Women don't want to be saved. So, dude, stop trying to save her. Stop trying to be the knight in shining armor, which then again, that can be a double-edged sword as well, because some woman's going to say, I want to be saved. And you're going to be like, wait, I'm confused.
Right.
Right. Kind of like the Titanic thing we were talking about, the little meme thing.
Right.
And just to kind of let everybody know that what we were talking about Titanic, there's something I sent Brian the other day that I saw online. It was a parody of the Titanic sinking. And one of the officers comes to the skipper and says, we need to save all the women and children. Right. And the captain says, what are you talking about? It's 2023. Save all the men and children. That kind of goes to poke fun at it. And I'm fine with feminism, have no issue with that. I got it. But sometimes let a man be a man and let a woman be a woman. And I'm not saying that to say a woman needs to be at her house barefoot and pregnant by any means.
Right.
You both can work, you both can be successful, but I think a man's role is we feel like we want to take care of you. Not provide for you per se because you can't provide for yourself. That's where the misconception comes in. But we do want to feel like you're a protector. I think that's a traditional male role that you feel like you need to protect. So if you're dating now, if you're a guy, I start with guys because we know a lot of guys, but we don't know a lot of single guys. The single guys we know are they're younger and they're trying to figure out what's going on with the ladies today. Well, obviously I can say you have two things that I think that you need to look for in these ladies. If they're very independent and they're I can take care of myself and things like that, you need to really have a conversation. If you guys are bumbling or whatever, these hinging, whatever all these apps are out there, if you meet the lady and you have the conversation, you really need to dig deep and kind of see are you the type of lady who wants a man to take care of you? And I don't mean financially take care of you, because some people get this, ladies get hot. I can take care of myself. I don't need a man, that type of thing. Well, why are you trying to date? If you don't, well, I'm a man, I need a woman. If you're a woman and I ask you that question, you say, I don't need a man. Well, what are we doing here? So why did you get on the app? Why are you on a date? I think you need to ask those questions so you can come to some kind of common ground of what she's looking for. Maybe she's looking for a partner, somebody who can be equal to her and walk the same steps together. But when a lion comes up to attack you, the guy jumps up because he wants to protect her. That's kind of where I think a lot of guys are missing the boat. Guys our age who are trying to date, we know some of those guys. I think they're falling short of thinking the way we were raised 40 years ago. We were the breadwinner. We were the man of the house. We're going to take care of this and do this. And the woman kind of says, let me ask my husband what he thinks. Well, you do that now with a lady, you're dating a lady in her 30s. She just might look at you and say, what are you talking about? I make as much money as you do. I have my own home. I have my own everything. I'm not going to ask your decision. I mean, maybe out of respect, but you're not going to be the decision maker. So there's a lot of questions I think that go in. I know this just blows your question out a little bit, but there's a lot of things that go into dating now.
Oh, definitely.
You're single. I'm dating now. But that's the crazy part. Even with my girlfriend now, we have to have the conversation on what are you looking for exactly in a person.
Well, I think you hit on a bunch of stuff. You're talking about the protector thing. I think that there's guys that are alpha, and I'm a protector. I mean, military security, it kind of goes hand in hand. That's my role. I don't know that all guys are that way, and maybe a woman. There's a lot of women that I've dated that they really like the alpha side, and there's some women that maybe don't like that.
They don't.
And that's okay. They need to find a little bit more of a milquetoast, docile, I don't know, type guy.
And that's not you. That's not me. Right.
Yeah. And that's not going to be me. So I think part of what you're alluding to there, I think, was self-awareness. You need to know, and again, this comes with time and experience, but you need to know what you like. You need to know what you don't like.
Right.
There's certain levels of clinginess that'll drive me crazy or someone else crazy.
Absolutely.
So it's finding that, where some guys would love a woman to be super clingy and texting them 12 times a day or 15 times a day. Like I dated someone one time, and it was, and this is going way back, but she's like, what are you doing? It took you 2 hours to get back to me. And it's like, I'm working.
Right.
What do you mean? What am I doing? And it's like, they just had this gotta be in contact with you, and that's not going to work for me.
I kind of think that comes from them being in a bad relationship before.
Could be, yeah.
And so now
little insecurity,
right? Very insecure.
Right.
If you don't text them within 2 hours, they're worried. Where are you? What are you doing?
Right.
And if I say I'll text you when I get so and so, and I don't text you, you might kind of say, okay, is he all right?
Right.
I'm okay. Shoot me a text. Everything good? Oh, sorry, babe. I slipped my mind. I'm good. I'll talk to you when I get home or something. But you said something. You mentioned how folks need to be self-aware. that's going to be a hard one because we have friends in common who use dating apps, and they'll ask us questions on why this, why that. Well, you can't just get on a dating app and say, he or she's cute, I'm going to date them. I want to go on a date because they're cute. That if you think about that logically, makes no sense.
Right.
Well, you're cute, so I want to go on a date with you.
One tiny component of the grand scheme.
Right.
Yeah.
So you read all those criteria that's oftentimes miscued. And I was listening to the radio. I'm a big NPR listener, as you know. And they were doing something they were talking about dating apps. This was this weekend, actually, how the information is skewed on the dating apps and how certain people get dates, some people don't get dates. And the apps are designed by people. And so the algorithms that this is what they said, the algorithms that's used on these dating apps are based on the people that own the dating app or the person that programmed it. So if the person who programmed it's me, it's my taste and what I'm looking for, what I consider beauty. It might not be what you consider beauty or what Raphael considers beauty. But so there was it swipe right's good or left? I can't, which one, whatever.
I don't know. Yeah.
Good swipe, I guess.
Yeah.
So you swipe good because you think she's cute and you're like, hey, Mark, I'm going to go out with her. And I'm like, so you go on this date with this girl, her personality is going to match what I like. And you're going to be like, she's only cute. And then she's going to say, why didn't he call me back? What was wrong with me on that date? Did he not like me? Did he not this? Did he not that? What did you say in the conversation when you met him? So dating apps and all that stuff really seems, knock on wood, I did not find my girlfriend on a dating app. So everybody I know, I mean, people have met happily on, what you see these commercials on, was it Christian Mingle? I don't know. There's a ton of these things out here. Some people will say I met so-and-so on a dating app and we've been together 7 years and we're happy. Okay. I think that is the exception to the rule.
Wasn't your profile name on Christian Mingle, come get Psalm? I'm just kidding.
That's messed up, Brian.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to throw a curveball at you.
Yeah, sure.
A woman comes up to you and says, all guys want is sex.
Oh, that's a good one.
So this is something that it's hard to tell someone this face to face.
Yes.
All guys want is sex.
Yes. So Brian's kind of going into a little bit about what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Brian and I get along well because we try to educate ourselves, and we watch a lot of podcasts, listen to a lot of podcasts, and now I guess you can watch them as well. But we were talking about something that I heard the other day. I can't remember the name of the podcast, so I don't want to take someone's glory. But it was some ladies and a gentleman. The lady said, "All men want are sex. That's it. They just want sex." And the girls were all agreeing. Yeah. That's every time I go on a date, the guy just wants sex. Okay. And this one guy, clean cut fella, said, "Well, I think you're missing the point, ladies." And they're like, "No, you guys just want sex." Okay. Well, most guys do want sex. That's kind of everybody in the world
I
knows
find
that.
a lot of women want sex.
Oh yeah,
too.
and that's where I'm alluding to.
Yeah.
And the guy said, "I think you're missing the point. If you're only offering us sex, all we're going to want from you is sex. So look at what you're offering us." So what did you show up at the date in? Were you half naked? Because you think you look sexy in it. Well, if you think all a man wants is sex, and whoever's listening to this, please don't come and send comments about this. Oh, well, we should be able to dress how we want to dress because we feel comfortable in it. We understand all that too. You should.
Yeah.
But do not hate us because we think you look sexy.
Right.
In half
That was
naked.
the goal, right?
That was the goal.
Yeah.
So now that you see us and our eyes are all googly, like, oh wow, she's so hot, and this guy's trying to now sleep with you. To him, maybe subconsciously, to him, he's thinking that's all she's offering.
Right.
There's no real conversation. There's no real in-depth anything, but you look really hot.
See, that's where, and I had this point blank with somebody, but they had brought that up. And I said, this may not come, I hope this comes across with the heart that I'm intending, but what else are you bringing to the table?
Right, other than your looks.
Other than your looks. And again, this is where I'll just throw myself on the altar here.
Sure.
That there's been several women over the past decade that I would have been very interested in getting to know at a deeper level and dating more seriously, and it kind of flamed out. And what I believe a lot of people do is they project onto other people that
Mm-hmm.
it's all guys.
Correct.
Or it's all these women out here.
Right.
Or she's a B word or whatever you want to say. Like you hear a lot of that stuff. But whenever I've dated someone and it didn't really go to a level that I was hoping for or aspiring for, very interested in somebody, I just say, okay, it didn't really work out. What can I improve?
Absolutely.
Because it's like, okay, well, do I have 6-pack abs? No, I do not. Am I at a financial position where I could be? Could I improve there? Could I improve my financial position? Can I improve my style? Can I improve my conversation? Can I improve my mindset? Anytime I don't get something that I wanted, guess what? Yeah, it hurts. It sucks for all of us. It's a shitty feeling for everybody. But rather than projecting onto other people, why don't you look internally and say, man, I need to increase my value that I'm bringing to the table, whether it's conversation, whether it's emotionally connecting, whether it's, physically bringing to the table.
Right.
And there's only so much you can change, right? You're what, 6'2", probably something like
6'2".
that. You're not going to be 6'6".
Right.
So there's, but there's only being able to focus on what you can control. Stop projecting on other people. And if you feel like all guys want is sex, that's one example of many things that we could say, but it's a good one because you hear it a lot. Start working on yourself.
Correct.
Work on your conversation. Work on learning about some topics. Work on, work on your financial position. Work on your career. Work on a number of things that, if I didn't draw someone to me, I got to develop my package. I have to become a more valuable human being.
Right.
And I would say that's one of the biggest things that I would
valuing yourself.
Hoping people would take away. And that's another thing too, is if I don't feel like I was talking to my friend who's been married a long time. He loves picking my brain about this stuff. He thinks it's entertaining, but if I don't feel valued at a certain level, even if I'm nuts about someone, I'm out.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm not going to be somebody's B plus.
No.
I'm going to be your A, and I'm going to feel appreciated. And if it didn't work out or I'm not getting that from you, I don't even get mad. It's not your fault. It's, I need to work on me, or it's not a good fit.
Yeah. Being appreciated. So we're talking about dating, and what does a man value most about a woman? What's a man value most about a woman? I'll throw that out there to you, Brian.
You throwing that out there to me? Shooting from the hip, I would say, what does a man value most from a woman? I would say ultimately being a great teammate.
Right.
And complimenting.
Right.
And having a great fit. That's what I would say.
Key word was teammate. To me, what I heard there, key word was teammate. And when you're looking for a teammate, all the things you discussed before about this person need to value themselves like you value yourself. A lot, it's not, I don't care how much money you have as being a man to a woman. I don't care about that. What are you bringing to the table to be a good teammate? How do you value me? How do you see me in your eyes? Those types of things. And obviously discussions and conversations. And for me, it was a definite, you must love to travel. For me, that was a definite. But when I see people trying to date and I ask the question, what are you bringing? I hate to even say it this way, but what do you bring to the table? Because we both have friends of the opposite sex, and they'll ask our opinion, as you were saying. But what are you bringing to the table? And I can tell you, do not bring to the table your old relationship. I know if I'm sitting down with you and we're having dinner and you start to talk about your old relationship, I don't talk about your kids all day long. It's great.
Sure.
But whatever happened between you and your exes, I'll care about it if we get deeper in the relationship.
Sure.
But I need to learn you. I need to talk about you.
Yeah, definitely shouldn't be in the short term.
Absolutely.
The worst thing you could do if I'm sitting down with you and I don't even feel like I go on a date. I just kind of, let's hang out, let's get to know each other. I'm not there to have a good date. That's another thing that we could talk about. I don't ever have a good date. You hear people, I had a bad date. What are you talking about?
But did she slap you? What happened? I mean,
you get police called on you? What?
Right.
So not to hijack the conversation,
Sure.
but that's a big red flag. You start bashing a bunch of your exes and it's all their fault. I know I'm going to be the next guy that it's my fault.
Right.
Like, I'm going to be nice, and I'm going to politely see myself out of that
Absolutely.
situation.
I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I just know you're not over that relationship yet.
Sure. Or you haven't understood that, like, when I talk about my failed marriage.
Right. Same with me.
It was, it's always positive about my ex. You might get some details way down the line.
Correct.
But I'm always going to try to own up to, I could have done this differently.
Right.
I'm always going to use verbiage like, I believe we both learned a lot.
Yes.
We both could have done things differently. I can own, and I'll typically, if the conversation comes up, I'll give an example like, this is something I did. I could have done that much better. Hindsight. But you're never going to hear me bash my ex.
No, because I agree with that. You never hear me bash my ex-wife ever.
Right.
I mean, it takes two to screw up, basically.
Right. And you know what? She did some things. I'm sure because she's continued to grow.
Yep.
And I did things that I would do differently. And I think we both learned from it. We both have a good relationship now.
Right.
We're not hanging out,
Right.
going to ball games or anything, but
Right.
it's something that, I think that's something that if you're a lady or a guy and you're sitting there bashing, oh, she's crazy, she was crazy, this, like, no, maybe you made her crazy.
Yeah, you think about that, right? I wonder that too, because
Right.
I think we have a lot of guys who say, she's crazy, man. She's batshit crazy,
Right.
that kind of thing. And I'm like,
And there are some crazy ones.
there's
Right.
some crazy guys too,
Right.
some stalker guys out
Oh
there.
my God,
And
tell me about it.
So, just say I was in a relationship before. Yep. So if you ask in a date, were you in a relationship before, Brian? Oh yeah, I was married. I have kids. I have 3 kids. Blah 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 blah. And it just didn't work out between us. But
Yeah.
we're kosher now. We're good. Okay, that's kind of it. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. Don't start saying so Brian, where she live now?
Right.
Da 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 da. All this kind of stuff. It does nothing for this date that you're on.
Right.
And before I was dating, now going on dates and meeting people, kind of thing was. Wow. I would get a lot of my ex this or my ex that, or just, I don't really care. I mean, I care because I care about you as a person, but I'm trying to get to know you. The part I needed to know was that you used to be married, which is fine.
Yeah. And
you guys, either you get along or you don't get along. Okay. And your kids are doing well between the two parents. Oh, okay, great. Or if they're not, whatever that is with kids, it's different. That's a little different sector. But okay, now let's get to know you. What do you like to read?
Right.
What do you mean?
Sure.
Wait a minute. I just asked you, what do you like to read?
Right.
Okay, now we're backtracking here. So
Yeah.
what do you do for a living? I preferred to see people that were entrepreneurs because the going in like mindset of working hard. Not, I love to clock out at 5 o'clock. I go home. Okay. Well, you can kind of, you make compromises. And so you would say, so what do you do? What do you do in the afternoon? And for me, a huge one was, what mine was, I should be in the morning or should be in the afternoon. Or do you do any physical activity? Or do you cycle? Do you walk or run or lift or something? CrossFit. That stuff is no way. Okay, mindset's not.
Yeah.
We're not connecting.
And it's may not just be a good
Yeah,
fit. There's not a right or wrong there.
You're nice, you're sweet, you're
Right.
beautiful, and you're smart, but your drive is not where I need it. I'm sorry, your drive is not there, and that to me was sometimes a no. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And we're friends.
And,
be friends.
or your drive was not where she needs it.
Too much for her,
So it's
or
okay.
not enough, or whatever.
And it's okay. And I just think a lot of people get offended so easily
Yep.
with trying to date.
Not to hijack you or railroad
Yeah.
you, but taking this point and going back to the question you said we were talking about on dates. A lot of times say, "Oh, men only want sex. They only want sex." Okay, so talking to guys when the date is not going well, no boxes are checked except for beauty. That is when I feel the guy kind of says, "Well, maybe we can have a hookup." And then the lady doesn't get it because the guy didn't directly say to her, "I don't really think we're compatible. I don't see a lot in common here. I think you're a nice person. Maybe have some coffee with,
Right.
hang out. But as far as getting to know each other in a longer term relationship, I don't think it's going to work." So I think a lot of the guys, and I'll fault us as men for that, we'll kind of go, well, since the relationship's not going to work out,
Just
well,
default to making the most of this night.
right? Yeah. Well, maybe we can make the most of the night. And I think sometimes women will say the same thing.
But then they get offended.
Yes. If they get
there's
offended.
no follow-up.
Right. And
Right.
it's like, well, but he wanted to sleep with me and we slept together.
Right.
Why didn't he call me the next day? Well, you knew the date wasn't going anywhere. There was nothing in common except for
Right.
physical attraction. That's not going to sustain a relationship. How many people in the world are beautiful? Huh.
Yeah.
That you think are beautiful? That's
Sure. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. We might have to do a whole podcast on this, but obviously this has nothing to do with insurance. But
No.
I like these conversations. I think there needs to be more content out here like this. Because a lot of times I know that you and I have had conversations with guys or
Right.
women about stuff like this, and it's like, I think people are hungry for that because people
Agreed.
want connection. I think that there's a real false connection that happens nowadays for a number of things. So as technology is changing life, we have to get acclimated to things.
Correct.
Kind of like the whole, not to go off in this direction, but
No, sure.
censorship, for example. It's like some people think you need to be censoring stuff on,
Everything, right.
and it's like, no, there needs to be free speech. The solution is not censorship. The solution is better speech.
Correct.
If someone's projecting ABC out there, someone needs to come along and make a case for the alternate.
Right.
And intelligent people can sit there and listen to it. The problem that you get is you get people that only get one side of the conversation,
Right.
and they're
Right.
so effing certain that's the way it is, and you're X if you don't believe that.
Absolutely.
And it's very polarized in society because of that. But so any case, I don't want to go down that path though.
No, we could do that
Not on
another
this.
day. But no, the
We're-
relationship thing was big to me, so I'm glad we
Yeah.
delved into that, because I'll ask you this question on how many friends do you have, not men and women, but men and women that are, who confide in you, who may be married, about an issue that they have. And you hear the issue and you're like, that's so stupid. Like,
Yeah, totally.
yeah, we don't go out on dates anymore. I'm like, take her out on a date. I don't feel like it. She's getting on my nerves. Maybe if you took her out on the date, dude, she
Right.
wouldn't get on your nerves.
Well, it's real big. It's a relationship. In relationships, the goal is to complement the other, to be a good teammate.
Right.
What does your teammate need? And it can't always be about you. I believe that if you are giving to your teammate and you're being a good teammate, that they'll want to be a good teammate back.
I agree.
And so I think you got to have good communication. I think people stop communicating, number one.
Yes.
I probably over communicate, if anything, at this point. But communicate what you need and be interested in what they need.
Right.
And then you got to make each other a priority. Otherwise, here's the thing. If you're not making your significant other a priority, there's somebody that is
else
willing
will.
to.
Absolutely. Somebody else will. And
You
you
know,
have to stop taking them for granted.
Right. And it's so easy to get complacent in relationships. And that's not just romantic relationships. It's employee relationships.
Absolutely.
It's easy to take, a good employee and take them for granted because I've got a office person here, Leslie. She's here all the time. She's on time every day.
Nice.
It's easy to take that for granted, and she's always in a good mood. She's always polite, and it's easy to take those little things for granted.
It is.
And I think, especially in romantic relationships, because other people are so accessible to your significant other now.
Correct.
Social media, especially if she's a professional woman that's out networking. I mean,
Right.
she's exposed to all kinds of guys that would gladly give her what she needs.
Absolutely.
And it might just start off with a little good conversation.
I am glad you said that.
Yeah.
I am glad you said that, because I don't think you and I have ever talked about it on a personal note, but like, I've always had access, and vice versa. My girlfriend has access to my social media. I have access to hers. I never check it. I would never pick up her phone and check her phone for Met. I would never, ever invade her privacy that way. And people have actually said to me, are you kidding me? You never check? Like you said, you're so accessible today in this world. What can I trust to it? I mean, I'm showing that I trust her by
Right.
never checking it.
Right.
And so I think trust is huge in a relationship. I just trust her to do the right thing.
And here's the thing: she's probably you're a smart, savvy guy. She's probably trustworthy, and so she hasn't given you anything to be concerned about.
And so I think that's a large part of a relationship with somebody. So.
And so at the end of the day, it just boils down to trust. You know, when there's trust there, you got to trust someone you're in a relationship with. Otherwise, why are you in a relationship? And if you're not trusting them, there needs to be some good conversations and maybe redefining the roles and expectations or something.
I want somebody to send them if she posts a photo, I want somebody, I don't mind a guy liking her photo and thinking she looks hot in it. Social media.
Right.
All I ask is the same thing you ask of me. Let's not have a conversation back and forth about where we can go meet.
Right.
That's the thing. But I don't really care if somebody says, nice photo, you look hot or something.
Right.
Like you've told me before, you want a woman that's very attractive. And if she's very attractive, other men are going to think she's attractive. Other women are going to think she's attractive.
I expect that, yeah.
So, right. That's why I'm like, no, I trust her wholeheartedly. I don't have any reason not to. And if you're in a relationship and you don't have that trust, you need to start questioning the relationship. Period.
Yeah, totally. So speaking of relationships, I think it's really important to have a good relationship with people that you do business with.
Correct.
Especially insurance.
Yes.
So kind of a segue into kind of our main topic here, because I could tell you and I could talk. We could do a 6-hour podcast, although nobody would listen to the whole thing. But, you know, having a good insurance person that knows their business, that's going to look out for you. And again, I'm sure the insurance person has a balance of they got to kind of take care of their company and their numbers and the company, but they got to take care of their clients ultimately.
Correct.
So there's 5 things that you kind of thought would be really good that the average person needs to hear when it comes to insurance. And number 1 was price misconceptions.
Absolutely. It's interesting. Yesterday I had someone, they moved from New Hampshire. And we had an appointment yesterday in the office, and we were talking about what she paid in New Hampshire. When we redid it here, exact same coverage that she has in New Hampshire, she's paying 3 times what she paid in New Hampshire. So she thought something was wrong. And very nice lady. We had a conversation. I showed her everything. Well, rates are determined by an insurance company. Obviously, they do. But the approval of those rates are based in the state. So just because XYZ, Acme, let's use Acme from, was it Looney Tunes? Yeah. So that the Acme Insurance, they say you're going to pay $100 a month for this widget. And you think it's expensive, where you go to company 1, 2, and 3, and you're about in the same ballpark. But you come back and you feel I'm paying too much for that. And so people always ask, why am I paying so much? The factors that go into why you pay what you pay is it goes into your credit, it goes into your background, it goes into claims in the area where you are, the vehicle you drive, the house where you live, if it's a jewelry, the type of jewelry, the company. I mean, a million things go into it. And these companies come up with what they feel is an appropriate price. And a lot of people think you can haggle a price with insurance. It's not a haggle thing. Either you have the coverage or you don't have the coverage. So if you go and say, I want my price lowered, only way you're going to lower your price is you're going to change your coverage.
Right.
People do not understand that. I mean, there's things like, I'm retired or I work from home now. You can change those types of things to pleasure driving or less miles, sure. But it's not going to be a large impact on anything you're paying. So the conversation with her yesterday, she thought that we as a company in my office, we set the price. I said, no, man, we don't. This is exactly what you have. But our rates here in North Carolina, I mean, we just had 2 rate increases. And people think that we're increasing it. And so I show her the form from the state, and she says, she's reading it, and she's like, can I take this home to my husband? I'm like, absolutely. I just printed it off their website, please. And she could not believe it. And so then we went into a whole lot of other things in North Carolina, their expensive taxes and so on and so forth. But the price, people think that we set the price at a local office. We do not. So whoever you all have for your insurance, they're not that person who's doing your insurance did not set the price. What you need to ask is, do I need this coverage? Is this coverage appropriate for me? Because if the coverage is appropriate based on what you're paying, okay, you're good. But if you're like, I don't need this much coverage, what do you suggest? Well, as an agent, I need to look at your lifestyle. What do you do for a living? Assets do you have to make sure you're protected? And then we can go up and down the scale. If I give you this price, this price, and it can go up or down. But those are the conversations people need to have. But people always just think, it's insurance. It's kind of like an attorney. People are like, oh yeah, insurance, an attorney. They think there's some kind of, I'm just going to mood you in the water in the background. No, it's not. It's pretty black and white. If you want this coverage, this is the price. There's no haggling. You're not ever going to get this coverage, and we're just going to lower the price for you. That doesn't work that way.
Right.
It is what it is. So price, you need to look at coverage. If you worry about, you think you're paying too much, you need to look at the coverage. And oftentimes people don't know what's covered. So they're paying a certain price and they think it's expensive. Well, that's our job to educate them on what is covered if something were to happen. And then oftentimes they say, oh, no one's ever told me that. I didn't know that. And they're fine with it.
Sure. Well, it's like the other thing is you can raise deductibles because you're reducing the insurance company's liability.
Correct.
So they'll charge you less because they're lowering their liability.
Correct.
So there are things you can control, and that's where a professional comes into play. That if I'm willing to take on more risk as a consumer, I can have less exposure to the company. They'll lower my rate. So there are things you can do, but
that's where it comes in when they're not wanting to accept more liability.
Right.
That's where you're like, we're kind of stuck here. Like I said, you can change your coverage,
right,
or you can pay for what you have the way it is.
Sure.
And what is it? Today is Wednesday. And I had somebody the other day, and they came in and they asked me a question about their deductible and what it was covered and so on and so forth. I'm on speakerphone with her husband, and he said, okay, I understand that. That makes sense. Well, that's fine. Let's just keep it there. There was they understood it.
Right.
It was a comprehensive deductible. They understood it and said, okay, that's great because we do live out here in the country. We just might hit a deer. Okay, got it. Thanks.
More likely to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they were completely fine with it and said, let's go ahead and take care of this. The ones that kill me are the ones who do not want to take the time, 5 minutes out of your day, 5 minutes out of a year to understand what you're paying for.
I think that's just, I know exactly what you're saying, because we'll get the same thing to call, for security. What's your monitoring rate? Like, it's the worst question you could ask.
Absolutely.
Like, monitoring rate for what? Am I given free equipment, which nothing's free?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of the same thing. It's like, as a consumer, I've told people this for a long time being in sales. The internet's full of uneducated consumers complaining about a company.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, it's two people. It takes two people to dance, right? And if you didn't get educated on what you're getting, that's on you. Now, if the company's not telling you,
that's on them.
That's on them, of course. But it's one of those things that, as a consumer, you've got to invest a little time to make an educated decision, or you're just rolling the dice.
Right. You don't know what you have, and we get that all the time.
And there's no way I would call a toll-free number for insurance.
No.
Like I see, I don't want to put any company names out there,
okay,
but
right.
let's say I wanted to save 15%, and on my insurance,
right.
And call up a company, a toll-free number, and there's no way in hell that I'm going to not have a relationship with my agent.
Right.
Period.
My cell phone's on my website. Text me if you need something. Call me if it's an emergency.
Sure.
I'm here for you.
Right.
And everybody's, aren't you afraid of that? People are going to call you at all times of night. Common sense people are not going to call you at 2 a.m. because they got their renewal and they have a question.
Right.
No one's going to do that. People they're like, oh, that person's a normal person. He's probably sleeping at 2 a.m. I'll send him a text tomorrow and see if we can meet or have a phone call or something. But it shows, I think it's about building those relationships that we're talking about. We're both in a sales type of environment, and it's about building that relationship with the people. And you can't build a relationship with an 800 number. Because every time you call, you're going to get someone different. You are. And that person's not going to, you can put notes and things like this in a system, but that one-on-one conversation with someone, making sure they're informed, that they understand in your business security that they have, and my business type of insurance and what's covered. You cannot change that one-on-one or meeting for a cup of coffee with a client. You cannot change that relationship. It doesn't get any better than that.
Right. Well, and I've said this for years too, being in security. It's like, our one of the two competitors we almost always compete against, or it's always in the conversation, is ADT.
Correct.
And I've told people for 20 years, I said, McDonald's sells the most hamburgers. Is that the best hamburger out there?
Correct.
And it's because you're dealing with the toll-free number is the minimum wage employee.
It is.
And you get a different person every time you walk into a McDonald's.
Right.
Whereas when you go to that local restaurant and the owner is in there and man, that food is so good. The service is great.
Right.
Like you feel good about the ingredients.
Chef
like,
comes out. Was everything okay?
yeah.
You want to take
And
care of you.
You know what? That's the restaurant I want to go to.
Right.
And that's the insurance situation I want to create. That's the business situation that I want to create. So, so that's number one. So, I would say overarching principle here is understand there's a big difference between price and value.
Absolutely.
Understand the value, and don't be nitty. I mean, if you're talking about $50 over the course of a year to have a relationship with an expert versus a toll-free number, it's a no-brainer.
Right. If you're shopping price, you're shopping price. I mean, they're all calling 800 numbers. They're calling all of them. But then when they get to us and we share the value of being local, we're here for you. We'll come to you. We'll come to your house. If you have a claim, we're going to come out.
Accessible.
And somebody asked me, and we were at this event the other day, and they were asking me about something with their house. And I said, oh, okay. If it's my customer, I'd go out and take a look and have the customer explain it to me. They actually said, you would go? I was like, what? Why would I not go?
Right.
I mean, that's what I do. That's the
Right.
relationship. Why would I not go?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see we'll see it. Did you call a plumber? Did you do so-and-so? Like, you have to be there for people, period. We all love someone there for us. That's human behavior.
Service and expertise. That's
it.
So for me, I'm going to pay a little bit more if need be to get service and expertise and relationship, no doubt. Number two is people don't think they need insurance.
Oh, all day long. All day long. So the example I'll give is the most insured thing are automobiles. And so you go over how coverage works in North Carolina, and I won't go into details on the uninsured, underinsured, and all this stuff. And so the suggestion's always to make sure they're well covered and not trying to sell price, but explaining the coverage. Bottom of the barrel is this, and this is what you get. One up from the bottom of the barrel is this. This is what we would recommend. I don't know, it's $5 or more or something a month or something ridiculous. I don't need that. You don't need it? Okay, let me explain it to you. And so you explain it to them, and they're like, I don't need it. Boom, accident or something happens, they call you.
And then they're getting personally sued because
Absolutely.
it only
And they
covered
say,
them.
why didn't you tell me I needed this? Well, we note and we do everything as we put it in the system.
Right.
Customer declined this, customer declined that. So when they call,
Sure.
we say, random day on December 8th of 2021, you said you did not want that. And when yours renewed, we asked you again, were you interested on this date? You said no in June. That's because I think it's about I think the more you take care of someone and you explain things to them, that's going to give them peace of mind. And that's also, as a business owner, going to give you peace of mind that you know you did the right thing. But people think they don't need it. Roadside assistance, simple coverage. People say, oh, I don't need it. Then they're stuck on the side of the highway and they'll call and they'll say, well, I thought I had it. Well, no, on this date, we offered it and you said you didn't need it.
Unfortunately, you declined it. We gave you the choice. That's our job.
Right. And I have a lot of business people, a lot of real estate investors who have a lot of rental properties. And we offer them umbrella coverage. I don't need it. If you were to get sued, you have 15 properties.
Might be someone else's 15 properties in the wrong scenario.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's for people. I understand everybody's in a different income bracket. I understand that. So I'm talking of the folks who basically are investors and things such as that. $200 a year.
Spend the money.
Spend the money.
Right.
It's a lot less of a headache because a lot of people don't know in a lot of insurance, the legal fees are included in those types of coverages. And they don't understand that. And so you explain it to them, and sometimes they'll say, yeah, okay, I got it. It makes sense. But oftentimes they're like, no, nah. And they'll joke, oh, insurance, they just want to get some money from us. And you just kind of chuckle and say, not really.
Well, yeah.
We're looking to protect you. I'm in business too.
Yeah, they're looking to make money, but it's you should be looking to cover your backside.
Correct.
The downside.
Correct. Small business owners, contractors, oftentimes that's a struggle with workers' compensation and general liability. They'll call and say, I only need it because I'm doing a job and I'm working for somebody. And they said, I need workers' compensation. Can I get it for a day or 2 days? No, it doesn't work that way, buddy.
You need to get it, period.
How many employees you have? 4. You need to get
You better have it,
Right.
you know. And there's a lot of people out there trying to nickel and dime, and sometimes when you're getting the best deal, here's the other thing. If you're hiring a contractor that doesn't have workman's comp and that person falls off your roof,
Correct.
they're coming after you.
Absolutely.
When you get that cheaper price on that job,
Right.
maybe they're not spending.
The money on the insurance.
What do I
that they
spend?
should.
I think we're spending. I forget what we spend on workman's comp, but it's a good chunk every month.
It should be, right.
Yeah, because there's a lot of liability it covers.
On a
You know,
ladder,
if
it's all on
Raphael falls
camera.
off a ladder, he's
Right.
going to be, taken care of.
Right.
So
That's a good business owner, though.
Yeah.
That's a good business owner, taking care of their employees.
yeah,
That's
definitely.
what you do.
It's built into compensation.
Absolutely.
You have to do it. So as a consumer, though, you turn around and get sued because you tried to save $200 on that, paint job or something.
Right.
By some guy who's saving himself $500, $600, $700 a month on
Correct.
workman's comp. So number 3, it's important part of your financial plan.
Absolutely. And it goes back into being sued. That it is in you have to have it, because so just use you, for example, and I don't know your inner workings of your business at all, but you have workers' compensation. You don't have it. Raphael falls off the ladder, as you just said, and he's out of work for a year. And you have no workers' compensation. So a lawyer says, hey, Raphael, you could sue him. You could sue his
Right.
company.
Yeah.
Well, how well is the company going to be doing going through a lawsuit?
Right. Which
the-
here's the thing. I mean, just the retainer for the attorney is probably going to be
Correct.
10 grand or
Correct.
something.
So yes, so it is detrimental that you have these things put in place if you want to be a good business owner. And the other part on a financial plan, even if it's just husband, wife, 2 kids, we'll go with the simple 2 kids. They drive a Honda Odyssey and he drives a Honda Accord. Well, he's driving down the road and he sneezes, or his wife calls, or his kid does something, car accident happens.
Deer runs out, you
Deer
swerve.
runs out, you swerve, whatever could happen.
Right.
God forbid you kill someone in an accident.
Sure.
Someone's coming after you.
Yeah.
And if you don't have enough coverage in your insurance to protect against those unexpected events, it could bankrupt you.
Sure.
It could bankrupt you. And those take the time, get it done, suck the costs up, and say, okay, this is part of what our monthly or annual bills are. Boom, that's not changing. Let's move forward. Just keep it.
Well, that's the thing, is like you work so hard. Again, coming back to us both being 48, we've worked so hard, learned so much, and delayed gratification to start working for retirement and having assets paid off and having money in the bank and investments and stuff. Whereas one little thing goes wrong, and you could have been spending $20 a month to
Correct.
protect that downside, and all of a sudden, let's say you built up a net worth of $490,000 and it's gone.
It's completely
Because
gone.
you were trying to save $10-15 a month.
Because you thought someone was ripping you off in the industry. That's
Right.
not how it works. And that's why I like folks coming to us. We will not. We give it to you black and white. It is what it is. Either you like it or you don't like it. If you have questions, let's go through what your questions are. Let's explain it. But I feel every one of my clients needs to have the knowledge and know-how of what they have, where they can explain it to their sister, their husband, their brother, their kids. This is what we have. This is how we're covered if something happens. Or I know if something happens, we'll call Mark. He understands it. That's the relationship piece.
Right.
But 800 number, you do not have that relationship piece. You can be
Right.
sitting around a dinner table, send me a text message because it's after hours, and ask me a question. I can pull your stuff up on my phone, look at your coverage, tell you what you have, and say, what's your question? What do you have?
Right.
Easy.
Although it's better to do it during business hours.
It is, yes, better do it in business hours.
I'm going to say that. We get thousands of customers. I'll get text messages 7
absolutely.
days a week, So part of the financial plan is that, I think especially as you develop assets, you really need to emphasize this. And not to say you don't before you have assets, but you really need to have it, because I think being a business owner, you have a little bit more of a target. I think society kind of has a target on business owners, like it rains money on us or
Right,
something. And
right.
it's like, if anything, I've underpaid myself what I could have made working for a big
Absolutely.
competitor over the last, 25 years or whatever it's been. So, or not, iWatch is 13 years old, but I've been self-employed most of it. So it's definitely a big piece.
Right. You want to protect your business.
And that's why when you meet with a financial planner, one of the things they're always bringing up is insurance.
Who's your insurance?
It's part of the plan,
right?
Yeah, it's part of the plan. Number 4 is points.
Oh, yes. So this is going to be definite for North Carolina. Point system. We have a point system, and it is North Carolina. It's called the Safety Driver Incentive Points. So if you get a ticket flying down the road in your truck, 3 insurance points is going to increase your insurance 45%.
Oof.
The state applies that to your policy. And a lot of people will call the insurance company and say, why did my rate go up? What did you guys do? Click, 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 click.
We weren't driving your car.
Correct. Yeah, right. That's what we're thinking. Well, I
Right.
wasn't driving. So, oh, you got a speeding ticket on I-40. I don't know, 76 and 85 and a 70 or something
Right.
like this. And that's actually 15. Yeah, it's 15 over. So we'll say 81, whatever it was. Wow, what? Yeah, and that was so many points. What, man? What? How was I going to say? It's 3 years. Comes off of your record in 3 years. And I'll say, look at your policy, look at the renewal where at the bottom it will say SDIP on your policy. Safety Driver Insurance Points. And there's a dollar amount beside it. And that's the amount your policy increased. Because in North Carolina, it's hard for insurance companies to increase it if people have tickets. Or like if you get an accident, you can't get charged for a ticket and they're not going to give you a ticket and get charged for an accident because accident gives points as well. So if you were speeding and got into an accident, you don't get charged usually with both. The police officer or the patrolman will give you a ticket for pretty much one. And that's it. Because they know I don't know if this is because they know it, but what happens is if you get into an accident and it's over a couple $1,000s, you're getting points for that. And that's going on your insurance. So if you get 2 accidents in a year, you're piling up the points. But these points are assessed through North Carolina, through your driving record. And so it's not the insurance company saying, we're going to increase your rate because you had this. It's actually North Carolina. North Carolina is increasing it. And we just, as the insurance company, collect the money.
And that's every insurance company.
That's everyone. But people think it's the insurance company. Oh, they want to stick me. No, you were speeding. Oh, can I get it forgiven? State of North Carolina is not forgiving it unless you go through the courts, perfect judgment, all this. We as an insurance company, have nothing really to do with that. You need to deal with the DMV. That's all on you.
Well, and here's what I learned over the years. Rather than taking slow down. I had a lot of tickets growing up. And I still believe this, like I'm motivated. I want to get places. I want to get there. I don't want to, but at the same time, like I'm pretty much 9 over everywhere now, pretty consistently. But
I want to get there safe.
Yeah, I want to get there safe. I just don't want to deal with the tickets. And here, what I was going to say is get a lawyer. If you get a speeding ticket, you get that 70 or 81 and a 70, get the lawyer.
I'm glad you mentioned
in my
that.
opinion.
Yes.
Just get the lawyer, do everything you can to never let it hit your record.
So I'm not an attorney, obviously. So I'll tell you, we have had people come in with a ticket and it hit their insurance and they say, we're like, oh yeah, you had a ticket last year or whatever the case was. I got an attorney for that. I'm like, okay, what did the attorney do for you? Well, they said they were going to get it taken away. So you call the attorney's office. The attorney got the points taken off of their driver's license, but didn't get the ticket dismissed. So the ticket's still there. DMV has it in your driving record, so you're still assessed for the ticket. And I'm like, so you paid the attorney. You need to call the attorney and tell them they need to finish doing what they were doing.
Right.
Because they should have got it reduced or, inoperable speedometer or some of these things that you see is what it should have been. But I'm like, no, man, I'm looking at your driving record right now. It's still on here.
Right.
So
a lot of times you can have that conversation on the front end with the attorney before you hire them.
That's what you should do.
What do you think you could do for me here?
Can you get it completely off, dismissed, inoperable speedometer, or reduced down some?
Right.
But it happens. I mean, it happens all the time. They'll pay their attorney. Nothing against my attorney friends out there, but they'll pay their attorney, and maybe the customer did not know exactly what they were paying for. I get that. I'll just put it that way. Maybe they were unaware. They thought that it was going to be gone away completely.
Right.
And so that happens, and so then they wind up paying the attorney, and they wind up paying the higher insurance. So they're just, they're pretty pissed.
Sure. Yeah. Understood. But again, being a smart consumer, communicating the expectations to the, communicating your expectation to your attorney of what you're expecting.
Right.
And the last thing we've got here is why an agent, which I think we probably beat that up quite a bit, but
not an 800 number.
Yep.
An agent's actually going to take care of you. and you have the right to speak to your agent. So a lot of times, obviously, we have staff in our offices because we can't do everything ourselves.
Sure.
But your agent is the one who, even if, say you send an email or you make a phone call and you want to, hey, I need to set up an appointment with my agent. I want to talk through some things. Matter of fact, I have one, I got an email this morning I saw of somebody wanting to sit down and talk about some life insurance that they have. But your agent's going to be working for you. They're on your side looking to take care of you. And we're not brokers, two different things. The agent is, I'm working directly for you. If there's an issue, if there's a claim, I'm on your side trying to help you figure out what's going on. And you build that relationship and you get to understand each other and how you work. And if you're my customer, you have an expectation of me. And I don't mind hearing what you think the expectation is. What would you like for me to do for you? How can I better serve you? That's the huge part in having someone to talk to, as opposed to an 800 number who's, here's Jane, Diane, Bobby, George, every time you call, and everyone's lost. Well, everyone in my office, we have meetings. We sit down and talk about it. If Brian Smith had an issue about something, we're all talking about it together. Our group's talking about it. And at the end of the day, we are going to call you back with somebody that you know. And you're going to know everybody in the office because somebody's going to call you from one time or another. And you're going to have that relationship with us. And I think that benefits the customer. And it also benefits us as the agency because we know our people. We build relationships with them. And it benefits you all because you just know.
Yeah. And kind of wrapping up, and I appreciate you sharing all this stuff, but wrapping up, one thing I want to point out, and to be transparent, I haven't done this yet either, and it's in the back of it's on a very long to-do list, but needs to happen. In the Raleigh Triangle area, property value has exploded over the last five years. If you haven't revisited your policy,
it is time to do it.
It's time to do it because you might be protected for up to $400,000, and now your house is worth $700,000.
Correct.
So all of a sudden you have a fire and things get burnt to the ground. You find out like you can't build the house back.
No.
At the level it was. So that's something that's really important to take a look at as well. So if you've got a great agent, you need to reach out.
Right.
Guess what? It's more coverage. You're going to spend some more money, but it's going to be worth it.
Absolutely.
Because if something happens, it's protected. And if you need to call that toll-free number to review your amount, just tell them you're canceling and call my man Mark.
That's
here.
right. Call us. Because that's, we actually have, we can create lists and look at homes that were insured within past 7 years, 7 years ago. And that was our mark to see where the values are to make sure those customers were happy with what coverage they currently have.
Right.
And if they want to change it, we can go through, reassess the property, and we can update it.
Could be a big difference.
A big difference, absolutely. We did that because we started getting calls. Some people smart saying, "Hey, I need to double check this because I don't think I can rebuild my house for $450 or $250 or whatever the case may be." And we look and we do a reassessment and say, "Yeah, you're absolutely right. You cannot." And this is the new one. And 98% of the time, they say, "Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and update that and change it."
Yeah,
because they want to feel secure and they trust us.
Yep, we're going to put your information up here on the screen, Mark. And we've gone through 3 takes here because Mark and I can yap it up here. But thank you for sharing today, and thanks for joining us for another 5 Things podcast. Have a great day. Hello, this is Brian Smith, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more valuable content.